I'll do my best.
All right. Has anybody got an idea that the call has started?
I do see the red
All
dot there.
right. Okay. So this is your Friday evening call in the U.S. It's Thailand Saturday morning. Glad to see you. Emil, welcome. We've got a lot of group today. We've got some new faces and missing some old ones. I'm glad to see Dhammadas back again. And Brett, been a long time. Long time. Good to see you, DJ.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Robert, you've got a question about dealing with people in social environments. So go ahead and tell us about it.
Yeah, so like you said, it's to bring joy and stuff to the social interaction, and to bring positivity and Dhamma and wholesomeness and spread joy. But sometimes I worry that if I bring enough joy to the interaction, that people they'll start to show me their pain, their real pain, and it can be difficult to know how to how to navigate that and deal with their pain with them. And I worry that I'll make an error and just make it like I won't do it skillfully enough, and then I could put myself in danger. So how do you overcome that, or how do you how do you not deal with that worry when you're spreading like joy and stuff to people?
Well, let's make this an open discussion. In fact, Robert, you gave me the idea by actually asking DJ. So, DJ, what do you have to say about what he's talking about?
Yeah, so it is an interesting situation, and I think that it's something where, there's a couple of things that we could really work with here. Number one is, especially when talking about, intense, we might perceive it as intense emotions from like others and what have you, is we don't have to pick that up. So we can be there for somebody, we can listen to them, but we don't have to necessarily pick that up. That has been something that I have seen to be, really, powerful, right? Is that, hey, you know what, I can be here for this person, I can like listen, and in that way too, that can be spreading the joy, right? So being patient, sometimes maintaining a noble silence, right, at the appropriate time, and then when the time comes, right, if we're kind of getting some Dhamma in there, right, is presenting it like a gift, right, and in a timely way. Now, in terms of worrying about doing that, I think it's helpful too to not have like a way out there super high expectation either, right? Like putting a super high standard in like something where there's like a lot of anxiety and perhaps even clinging that can come from that. So again, it's coming back to analyzing, our own mind, noticing those states and arriving at joy there, because we can't really help, others arrive at joy if we're not in joy, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brett, I haven't seen you for a while. Do you have any comments to make about Robert's question?
Yeah, I think just to add to what DJ was saying, I think when we worry, I know from personal experience, I'm leaning into the future. And when we approach the needs of others in pain, if we can advert equanimity, as DJ was skillfully describing, then we can do so instantaneously. And so we don't really have to ruminate beforehand. We are available. I think DJ language, in fact, it happened this morning. And it happened in a way that was random and serendipitous. I went over to Discord, and I woke up this morning and I had these Vedanas, I had these feeling tones I was sad. And there was no apparent cause in the mind. maybe it was just the body, but I was sad, and I just, that was happening. And I noticed that DJ had asked me, he just said, "Hey, Brett, how's life?" And I think it was about 7:30 p.m. last night. And so I began texting on Discord, and maybe he wasn't aware of my emotional content. It was just a discussion, but it just occurred in a timely manner. It's one of those things where before long, I was generating joy on my own. The experience was arising, and it was just, So it's difficult to enumerate and put into language, but I think DJ did so skillfully. I can't add too much.
All right. Thank you, Brett. Michael, do you have something to add? He was here just a second ago. How about you, Dhammadas? Another Robert in the
it just reminded me of a Ram Dass quote where he said, "Suffering because other people are suffering does neither them or us any good." So we can have compassion when others are suffering, but try not to get like stuck in it with them, like putting on the life raft so we don't drown with them. That's what that reminded me of. But anyways.
Oh, okay.
One suffers, then two suffers. No, that's not necessary.
Emin, how about you? Do you have something to add?
I would say something between open-hearted giving and your analogy, Dhammarato, about pumping iron. If it hurts, maybe it's too early. Like, I would help with things I can. If something is hurting me, maybe I'm not ready to help.
Something's happened with my cell phone making a lot of noise. So anyway, Michael, do you have something to say about?
I kind of ran off to give my son something. He was calling me, so I lost track of the topic a little bit. I do have you guys in my ear.
We're talking about when other people are suffering, it's hard to add joy.
I guess my first response to that would just be something I heard Ram Dass say a long time ago, because he used to, as a practice, sit with people who are dying. And he said that, when he first started doing that he would try to cheer them up. And he eventually found that was not the appropriate response. And so he instead started to go in almost as like empty space, just like be around them, like create like a empty space of peace within himself, and just allow them to be in whatever state that they're in, and be sort of like, just like, I guess you could say like an energy of peace, and he would allow their pain to come into him and kind of filter back out as peace. Not try to change the way they feel or the way that they think, and just to be a peaceful presence, almost as like a meditation practice himself. And then he would find that over time that would be a better way to ease their suffering, than to try to make them happy.
So, Robert, what do you think? Is what you've been hearing useful to you?
Yeah. Sorry. I like what you said there, Michael, about just staying in like a state of peace, and using that to help people to come into that space of peace with you without there needing to be a back and forth sharing, or like a sharing of joy, and then they'll open up to that potentially, and then show you some pain that's a bit like it, you know, it can be a threatening situation because you might, you know, respond to it wrong or whatever. So I like that suggestion. Yeah. I'll try and work with that going forward.
Okay, good, Robert. Let me see if I can add a little of something to this. The first thing to say, which is just an old cliche, is misery loves company. That when people have a problem on their mind, they want to go tell somebody. Also, when we figure something out that's been bothering us, we want to go tell somebody. I'm sure that each one of you have experienced that. Who can I say this to? Example would be, oh, we've got new puppies. Who can I go tell we've got new puppies? When Pumpui died, I wanted to go tell people that she died. You know, we want to go share with others. And we all want that kind of space. The question is the response that we get from someone else. And so we can look at this situation from both sides, okay? We're either the one that wants to tell all about it, or we're the ones who have to hear all about it. And in the case that you're in, Robert, right now, you're talking about it from the side of having to hear all about it. And that this is the point where most of the time it's the Dhamma dudes that have to put up with listening to other people's stuff. And as I said, misery loves company. They want to tell us all about it. So it becomes almost an art, a skill to develop of how to handle people when they're in their pity party. Now, the Buddha actually gave an example of this, and that he actually demonstrated the example over and over and over again. But before I really got into Buddhism, I'd already been pretty deep into psychology, and there we had found some of the psychologists were actually putting a framework around this, or giving, let us say, labeling the process that the Buddha actually demonstrated. And that is the concept of pacing and leading. That the way that we can handle it, if we've got our wits about us, rather than falling into their pity party, we just mention that their pity party has validity. An example of that would be that, let us say, the woman lost her daughter, a child that she had had for years, but was still a child, and the child died, and the mother was really, really grief-stricken. And everybody came to comfort her, but her position was, nobody knows the trouble I'm seeing. Nobody knows my sorrow. And then a man came and talked to her, and he shared with her that he had lost a son of about the same age. And that's what helped her make the connection with him. This is called the leading part. The pacing part, that we have to pace them. We have to find a way to get community with them so that they will accept us when we try to drag them out of their mess. So it's a two-step process, the pacing and then leading. And that if we can find a way of comforting the person, or at least we can agree with them, wow, what a mess you're in, or yes, they did you wrong. This, in fact, may even be a little white lie, and we would call it a little white lie because it doesn't really matter what we say. The point is to get them to open their door, because they see you as familiar. They see you as in the same shape that they're in. This allows us to get in there and pace with them and move along with them. And then once we do this, we can move them out of it. Now, let me give you a really, really bizarre example of this. This happened back in the 1960s when they still had mental institutions, when they still locked people up for not behaving the way society wanted them to. There is a kind of disease, a mental illness that is called catatonic schizophrenia. Have anybody ever heard of that term? Catatonic schizophrenia basically means that the person is so afraid that they won't even move. They're paralyzed with fear. And that, Robert, this is something that I wanted to point out to you, because I can see that sometimes you feel like that you're paralyzed with fear. Not enough to get locked up for it, but certainly you don't know where to go or what to do. And so you kind of freeze, you do nothing. Now, this is a better, or let us say a different situation than what DJ was mentioning about sometimes the best thing to do is to keep your mouth shut. But keeping your mouth shut when actually you want to talk is completely different from being frozen in fear. So these guys, by the way, named Bandler and Grinder, were the ones who worked with a, let us say he was a hypnotist, but he was excellent. His name was Milton H. Erickson. And these two psychologists studied him and came up with a system they call NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, because that, in fact, is what hypnotists, really good ones, medical kind of hypnotists, can get in there. Getting in there, by the way, is the pacing, so that they can help reprogram the linguistic way that the mind functions. So this is neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. I'm sure that everybody's heard about this, all right? So using the techniques of Milton H. Erickson, these two psychologists, Bandler and Grinder, walked into this cell where this catatonic was frozen. Now, back in those days, they didn't have video cameras, but what they did know, the people who were, let us say, the workers on the ward, could hear noises coming from his room. But when they would knock on his door or open his door, they would find him sitting frozen. He was literally petrified of being around anybody else. And so Bandler and Grinder took this on as kind of a project, and this is how they handled it. They walked into the room. One of them stood in the corner, kind of, out of sight, out of mind. And the other one sat down across the room or close to this guy and he started mimicking him, taking the exact same posture. And over a few minutes of time, this guy became curious. His curiosity actually was able to outweigh his fear. And when they noticed that he had started to move just a little bit, they waited a little while longer, let that curiosity grow. And then back in the 60s, before tobacco and all of that, the guy who was sitting doing the miming or the mimicking, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a pack of cigarettes, opened it up, took a light, and then handed the pack of cigarettes over to the catatonic. And the catatonic actually took a cigarette. They had stayed in the room long enough and been doing nothing at all that he became a bit familiar with them. So that was the pacing part. And then putting his hand out with the cigarettes was the leading part. And we see this with the Buddha a lot. In fact, the place where a lot of people get confused about Buddhism is when the Buddha will take that pacing role to agree with people on any kind of stuff that they want to come up with. He was especially good with the Brahmins because he had a teacher when he was a very young kid. He studied all of the Vedas and all of the literature and everything like that and was quite a scholar. And so he knew the Brahmins' shtick about as well as they did. And so if he has those kind of people who are coming to him, they're not necessarily asking advice. They're more there to argue with him or to do things like that or to share their problems and stuff. And he takes the opportunity then to feed back to them all of the stuff that they already know and believe. This is the pacing part. And then he will kind of turn the tables on them, set things upside down, and they will follow along with him when he's leading them into the Dhamma so that they can begin to see it. And then at the end of almost all the suttas, they will say, I will become a lay follower of the Buddha for the rest of my life, because he was actually able to straighten things out for them. All right. So, Robert, you can actually take this as kind of a big experiment for yourself, and all of you can, is the next time that you have somebody who's in a pity party, you can crawl into that pity party with them wisely, correctly, knowing that you're in a two-step process, rather than just falling into their pity party and commiserating with them and having the pity party and feeling miserable. Oh, that bank is a really bad place, or that political party over there is terrible, or whatever their misery is about. If somebody dies, you've had somebody die too. All right, so this is the way that we do it, but we doing it wisely. And after we gain their confidence, then we can start to move it. We can start to change it, start to drag them out of it. And how we do that is generally the starting of the leading, in our case, in our society, is to do it with a little bit of a joke, to start bringing some humor into it, to crack a smile. And this is the way that we can start to bring somebody out of their misery. That in fact, this is, we've been talking about the Brahma Viharas from time to time. This is actually then the way of the Brahma Viharas, that you go into that room with the catatonic because you actually have some friendship, you have some camaraderie, you have metta. And then this is where the karuna comes in, is that you start to pace them, you start to have the compassion for them, and then the mudita, the third one, is then the leading them out of it, the sympathetic joy, that you start having your joy come up, and that will help them to come out of it. That if you do the leading too quickly, they will resist it. That in fact, that's another option that we can take. And that is that when somebody comes to us with a pile of grief, we can answer that with joy. Oh, start telling those jokes immediately. Oh, ain't it awful? Oh, wow, you're in such misery. Wow, you're hurting so badly. And you say that with a great big grin. They're not going to take that very well. But you can keep your joy going. You can spend the time long enough to bring them out of their suffering, bring them out of it by teasing them about it. They're going to get angry. They really will. I've been that way myself until it finally, the dam of anger bust. It breaks up. and we see the wisdom and the humor of what somebody is saying. That in fact, I've seen Achan Po do that with me. That he will tease me a little bit about whatever I had going. So these are the two ways of doing it. One is do the pacing and the leading, and the other one is to smother them with joy, friendship, gratitude, look at the bright side of life, all of that. By the way, there's an old joke about this, and that is that the guy is saying, I was just in bad shape, miserable, hurting, everything was horrible. And he said to me, cheer up, things could get worse. And so I cheered up, and sure enough, things got worse. So if you try to cheer somebody up, they will get worse. But you can keep working with it. You can keep with your joy. You can stay with it. And they will eventually come out of it. You can start asking them, what are the good things that you have in life? You can, if you know something about them, you can already point that out to them. That you've got a good job and everything is cool. You know, why don't you cool out, mate? And they'll grumpy some more. And you can keep pointing out everything is all right, everything is cool, and pretty soon they'll start to buy that.
Right,
So,
because
go ahead.
Sorry, but I mean, because you're sincere, and how long can you really hide sincerity? How long can you hide in authenticity? Or if you're honest, it's not going to stay hidden.
Well, that's true, depending upon your skill level.
Yeah. Well,
that in fact, this is something that would be the job of a very, very skillful psychotherapist. And by the way, I don't find many of them, but I'm not out looking anyway. But I would say that Bander and Grinder, using their method, helps give psychotherapists a great deal of skill in being able to know when to come out of the pacing into the leading. It takes a lot of observation of who you're working with. And that, so I would then say maybe that the way to do this is that if you have good skill, you can do the pacing and the leading. But if your skill level is not that great, then just smother them with joy. Just smother them with it. They'll get angry, sure. Give them some more joy. Don't give them a teaspoon of sugar to help the medicine go down. Give them a backhoe shovel full of it.
funnel it in.
Yeah, right. Just keep putting it on. Yeah, everything. I hear you. I hear how miserable you are. I don't see it. You know, and so this is the way that you can begin to handle this. So, Robert, what would you prefer? Would you prefer all joy all the time, or the pacing and leading method? I don't hear you. Never mind. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
Don't freeze up on us now, Rob.
I don't know.
You're not on the spot. Everything's all right. Everything is fine.
Pacing and leading, it sounds more gentle and gradual.
Yes, it is. It takes some time. And it takes some skill. And so the question is, are you willing to put that kind of skill, effort into it?
Yes.
That's where your metta comes from, your kindness. If you have the real kindness, you can take that opportunity to get in there with them so that you can grab them by the hand and lead them out of their misery, lead them out of their fear. So, DJ, do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, I think it's really wonderful that you brought up that pacing and leading sort of method, and kind of meeting people where they're at and then slowly, sprinkling in the joy. And I think that there's something else that's really helpful, which is confidence in this, having the confidence that, hey, we can do this, having the confidence that, hey, we're not going to crack, we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The skill and the knowing that you've got the skill to be able to do it. Yes. Because the other possibility is that you go in there to fix a situation and you wind up being a part of the situation, which actually reminds me of the thing that I saw when I was staying at Wat Thai, Washington. For some reason, some of the politicians just wanted to take the monks all over the place. So we went to the Library of Congress, and we went to the Smithsonian, and we went to several offices. Most of it was in the agriculture department. But there, I saw several occurrences of the same Xeroxed line drawing. And what it was is it was a line drawing of a pond with a guy standing in the middle of it, surrounded by alligators on all four quarters. And the caption of the photo, or the line drawing, was, "When you're up to your hips in alligators, it's hard to remember that your original intention was to drain the swamp." Okay. That in fact, they've talked about draining the swamp in Washington now since the 1970s, I think. But by the late 1980s, I had already seen this sign. So that sign's been around there, and it's actually become quite a cliche in Washington of draining the swamp. But what they don't actually point out is that you are there to drain the swamp, but the alligators who are already in Washington are preventing you from draining the swamp. But 10 years later, after being in Washington, you wind up being one of the alligators. You've been in the swamp so long, you become a swamp creature, the creature from the Black Lagoon. So this is the problem of the issue of the skill level. Can you go into that swamp to drain it for somebody without becoming one of the alligators that is there to prevent the swamp from being drained? So I agree with you 100% on that, DJ, that it has to do with your level of confidence. And if you don't go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna add that, yeah, that goes with like a discernment though, in terms of like understanding, like, okay, having that confidence that, like, yes, we can help out in this situation, and like continuing with that, but also understanding, like, if we're not quite at that level, it might be wiser to take a different course of action, like remove ourselves from the situation. I think this is why, like, the value of getting into seclusion is so helpful, especially if you're kind of living more like a householder life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so having that time to get into seclusion to clear out the mind so that our sati, right, is sharp, that we have the wakefulness to actually do this. Because when we are in that swamp, we have to keep remembering, coming back to, hey, we are in the swamp, being aware of what what our intentions are here, and not to get lost, right?
These are momentary qualities. We can't have confidence as a solid, but we can create that mental formation, and our sati is necessary for those moments and to be there, for our awareness to be there, to form confidence.
Michael, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I would say that for me, I find like the non-self perception to be useful in this case, which is the way that I use it is not to make a distinction between thoughts, perceptions, beliefs, opinions, feelings going on internally within me, and the thoughts, perceptions, beliefs, and opinions, mental states being like expressed and vocalized around me, and to have sort of an equal disenchantment towards wherever it's arising. Like it's all awareness, and here's anger arising in this location. Maybe somebody's projecting anger towards me. That's no different than anger arising in this location, anger arising in my own mind. My job is to use the non-self perception to break the process of identification wherever something unwholesome is arising, and just to maintain a state of equal awareness in all situations. You brought up the householder life. You know, I'm a householder, I have a job, and so that's the only way I've found to create a cohesion or a unity in my practice from one moment to the next, is to sort of try to maintain that perception of non-self through all of my activities.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Can you guys hear the baby waking up?
Yes, I hear you.
The 2-year-old is now in the bath and the baby is waking up, but just so you know, I can hear you guys because I have an earpiece in my head. So when I walk away, I'm still following the conversation.
Okay. One example, by the way, of that pacing and leading is the sutta about Gasi Gautama, I think. I've forgotten how to pronounce the name. Maybe someone will come up with it. But she had her baby to die, and she could not accept that the baby was dead. And she carried the corpse around with her to various doctors, Ayurvedic doctors, and nobody could do anything about that. And so she came to the Buddha, and he applied this 2-step method. And the pacing that he gave her was because she was looking for magic. He said, you go around to houses and get one anise seed. Sometimes they translate it as mustard seed. And get just one mustard seed, very cheap, no problem. Every house has got anise and mustard in those days. But the catch is, and this is where he starts the leading part, is that each household that you go to only accept a mustard seed if they have never known death in that family. And so she went out with her corpse of its baby and went around. And when she finally did come back to the Buddha, she came back without the corpse. She had figured out that the baby was dead and that everybody knows death. Now you can imagine, what will you do if somebody knocked on your door and you answered the door and there is a woman who is asking for an anise seed because she's going to take it to the Buddha to perform a special magic trick to bring the baby back to life, but that the only reason that she wants an anise seed from you is because your house has never known death. And so I can imagine some of the conversations that happened with her when she was trying to get an anise seed from various people, because she was going house to house to house to house. How many houses did she have to go to figure out that all of humanity is in the same boat, that we lose our loved ones, we lose our children. You're going to lose that kid either to death or to adulthood, but one or the other, you're going to lose him. And so that's the way that we have to see things, is that all life is temporary, and that if we can't see that directly, then we need some sort of, let us say, a way of the pacing to go figure it out for ourselves, to go around to all of these houses asking for that anise seed, to find out that everybody's got the same trouble. Everybody's got the same problems. this, back to you, JJ, on that. This is one of the points about recognizing that you have the skill, is because you've been there, done that. You've had to put up with stuff. You've had to go and talk to people, bringing your misery party to them, hoping that you'll join the misery party and being very happy in a miserable kind of way, that somebody's willing to join your misery party, that they'll give you the company that they need. And so this is not so much of a skill level, or let us say that it is a skill, but it's a skill that we probably already have if we would exercise it. To know that we can handle getting into that pity party, because we've been there, we've done that, but this time we're doing it wisely. We're not actually in a heartfelt pity party. We're just kind of half into it, or kind of in a little white lie or false kind of way. We act like that we're in a pity party, just like the Buddha acted for those Brahmins like he was a Brahmin. And I know that that gives the modern people a whole problem or two, because they say, look here in the suttas, look here in the scriptures, Buddha is actually acting like a Brahmin. He's agreeing with everything that they said. But oh no, he was using that in a skillful manner so that he could pull them out of it. But we have to, let us say, get in the swamp first. But then we can stay in the swamp, but not be the alligator, not turn into the alligator. That we can stay there in the swamp and deal with the swamp directly. But that dealing with it is then the leading part of pulling them out of it. In a way, kind of talk the alligators into helping them to drain their own swamp. So this is a way in this. I know her last name was Gautama, but Hasi or Gasi. Does anybody know the name of this famous woman who carried a corpse around? I'm sure, Michael, you know it. You don't remember?
Not at the moment, no.
But you know the story that I'm telling.
Yes.
Yes.
I had to cover her
Me
ears.
too.
She didn't like it.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I do know the story. Yeah.
Right. So this is kind of the way, Robert, for us to deal with this stuff, is to know that you have been miserable too. And on this opportunity, you're going to be in that misery, but not of that misery. You're going to be able to get into their swamp, but you're not going to become the alligator. You're going to stay out of that and be able to handle it so that you can actually help them drain their own swamp and to pull the plug on that misery joyfully.
You know what I was thinking of, Dhammarato?
Pardon?
Do you know what I was just thinking of? Or can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're saying. My ears are not that good.
Oh, I was listening to a conversation you were having with Avery, an older conversation, and I think it was about painful thoughts or something, and you were talking about being alive, basically, and appreciating the breath and being alive. And I was thinking that, and I was driving while listening to it, and I was thinking, let's say I got distracted while listening to the conversation, and like a deer ran in front of the car, and I swerved, and like a truck was coming towards me, and I just narrowly missed being hit head on by that truck. Well, the rest of that drive, I would be so happy just to be alive, just the fact. And so why can't we be in that state of mind all the time, where we're so appreciative of the fact that we're alive, that we're still breathing, that our body is not dismembered, but it seems that we have to be in a situation where we, nearly escaped death, or just came out of the hospital, or, something traumatic happens to really have that state of mind, and then it passes so quickly.
You're right. That in fact, that truck in front of you and your ability to swerve and get out of its way actually was the reminder for you, wow, isn't it marvelous to be alive? That, in fact, knowing that we're going to die is the very best part of that, because if we lived forever, then there would be no appreciation for life at all. But when we recognize that we're going to die, that makes our life precious. Wow, I don't have much left, but I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it.
You have a near-life experience.
Yeah, a near-life experience. That's a good one.
I think it was from a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that actual having death stare us in the face is quite a wake-up call if we're wise. To wake up, to recognize that we've got very little left. But what we do have left is precious. And that's mostly what people are having a pity party about, is because they've lost something. And so the leading part then would be is to allow them to see that they haven't lost it all. They've still got their life left. They've still got opportunities left. They've still got something marvelous that they haven't lost. And if we can get people to start to appreciate that, then we can actually get them out of their pity party. To recognize, and one of the let us say, strange way of doing that is when somebody like has lost a daughter, you can ask her, well, which would you rather be? Would you rather it that your daughter died and you stayed alive? Or would it be that you would like for you to have died and she as a teenager have to put up with your death? And almost everyone will come around to, oh, well, I kind of appreciate the way that it is, because the way of me dying, I don't want to do that, and having my daughter grieve over me dying. And so we begin to turn that around for them, and they can say, wait a minute, I kind of like it the way that it happened. I would rather it happened this way, and we can appreciate still being alive. Now, we couldn't go and approach the daughter with the same riddle, because she's dead. And so she doesn't have a choice in this situation. But the mom who has lost her daughter, she does have a choice. Is she going to appreciate that she's still alive and that her daughter is not grieving over her death? Because that will help people when we see how much we do have. So Michael is absolutely correct when he's pointing out is that getting people to appreciate the fact that they're still alive kind of, let us say, trumps whatever misery they had. Whatever problem that they had, if they lost their job, yeah, but that's kind of wonderful. I would appreciate losing my job because now I've gained freedom from that job. Or if the house burned down, then in fact, that's something that happened to me. When I was working for IBM, my house burned down. And all of my childhood treasures, my grandma's piano, the new tuba that I had purchased, a string bass that still needed work, tape recorders, electronic equipment, all kinds of stuff, including that bottom freezer kind of refrigerator that was so strange. And we lost it all. But guess what? With the insurance money, I was able to quit IBM and go to university and get a degree in computer science, which is what I was wanting anyway. And so that house burning, it was, wow, what a cleansing operation that was. But it took me for a while to get out of my pity and get into, hot dog, now this is an opportunity. So this is a way that you can present it with people, if you know what's going on with them, is to help them after you pace them, is to lead them into recognizing whatever's happened is now a new opportunity. This is an old Chinese proverb, I think, that, you know, that a crisis is actually just another opportunity.
Absolutely.
Something's changed. Right. Like I dropped my favorite cup and it broke. Oh, poor me. I was so attached. I drank coffee out of that same mug for years and years. It was special. But guess what? No, that coffee cup could be replaced. Got a new opportunity to get a bigger cup.
That's what I was going to say. You have a new adventure of a beautiful cup you've never seen before.
Exactly.
It's new. You know, can I say something about medical tests and trials? You know, if you have to go to the hospital a lot and you have anxiety or trepidation over medical tests, there's a way to turn that around and open up and see the adventure and the fascination. If you really don't know if it's a new test, if you're going to have a bronchoscopy or you're going to have angiogram, no matter how gruesome it might be imagined to be, you've never experienced it. It's brand new. And if it can be looked at that way, and I can tell you it can be, it's the same thing. And it doesn't have to be resisted. There might be some pain. There might be some strange, peculiar sensation, but it doesn't have to be dukkha.
Right. Going into the hospital and somebody is full of trepidation and full of fear, you can point it out that, hey, if this surgery is successful, you're going to be really okay. And if the surgery kills you, then nothing matters and you're still okay.
Mm-hmm. Death is a problem for the living.
Yes, death is a problem for the living. The dead love it. So this is a way of leading them out of it. And thanks for mentioning this, Michael, is yes, being alive is marvelous.
Yeah.
And it's much better than these pity parties that all of our friends keep having. And so there is a way to cheer them up by pointing out all of the good things that they have in life. So, Dhammadas, do you have any comments about this?
No, just love hearing it, and sounds wonderful.
All right, good one. Emin, how about you?
This all sounds good. What comes up for me is the difference, or maybe the sameness between this approach towards misery versus anger. What I learned is, especially if I am the subject of anger, that anger grows, and sort of trying to soothe it makes it grow even harder. Trying to not resist it makes it grow even harder, to the point that's so big that it's much bigger than my sati. So is this similar? Is there a difference?
Well, in the case that you're talking about, it's kind of like that you're actually playing both sides of this situation. You're the one who is complaining, and you're also the one who is getting you out of it. The question is, which side are you going to remember to play? Are you going to play the misery guts? Are you going to play the pity party? Are you going to play the champion? Your choice. If you can remember to play the champion, then you can start telling yourself all of the really good stuff in your life. This is, in fact, what now I'm talking about is just the normal practice of anapanasati. That we play the misery guts. We have the unwholesome thoughts. We worry, we fritz, we doubt. And then we can remember that we've got a higher side. Let's play that role. Let's gladden the mind. Let's take ourselves out of our pity party by talking ourselves into seeing how marvelous things already are. Things are great. If we'd only see them that way and start talking to ourselves about it like that, that there is no pity party worth keeping. That you're going to get out of it anyway, somehow or another. You're going to let it get old. So why can't we let it get old right now? That unwholesome thought, that's just old stuff. Let's come and do something new. Let's gladden the mind. Let's change our attitude. Let's come out of being the victim and find the champion within. This is just regular old anapanasati practice. This is the actual teaching of the Buddha right here, is to wake up and take a look at that pity party we're having and make a change. Come out of our pity party. Come out of the victim into the champion. I can handle this. I'll get over this. There's nothing to it. And look at all the stuff that is really marvelous that I still have. I'm still alive. And so this whole point that we're talking about here is actually something that each individual one of us does on our own when we're in seclusion. And then when we get our stuff together, become our own therapist, get over our misery, then we go out into the world and ta-da, there we go, having to deal with everybody else's misery too. But we've now got the skill to do that. We've got the skill. We know what misery is. We just got ourselves out of it. We can get somebody else out of it too.
Yeah. Like, we don't have to go into it like, oh no, I have to deal with everyone's misery. We can go in like, hot dog, I can handle that, you know?
Hot dog, I can handle
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I've been there, done that. I know what misery is. I did a good job of it. I made myself really miserable, and I made myself get out of it. That took skill. Now let's apply that skill to
We
help
need to get
others
out
out
of
of it too.
we ought to get out of the special victims unit.
Special victims unit. I hear that.
I've been in
Because every victim feels special. Everyone who is in a pity party, they think that their pity is so unique, it's so deep, that only they can have it. There's an old spiritual, by the way, from the South. Nobody knows the
Goodbye.
trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I've
Trouble I've seen.
seen. Glory,
Oh,
hallelujah.
hallelujah.
Only me has this. I'm glad nobody else has this much sorrow. Only me got it. So, Robert, checking back in with you. Are you still here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, what about today's talk? What's your favorite part?
I like the singing at the end.
The what?
The singing.
Oh, the singing. Yes. Nobody knows my sorrow. But that song is sung not in a woeful way. It's sung in a happy way. I even changed the lyrics by ending the second verses, glory, hallelujah. Nobody knows my sorrow. I've got the very best. I am unique, and I can see that now. Nobody knows what suffering is. So, when you run across people that are having a pity party, Robert, you can best them. Oh, I felt worse than you do now. Well, let me tell you all of my sorrow. You'll forget about your sorrow when you hear all about mine. And so there's a lot of skills that we can apply to this rather than feeling like, oh no, I've got to go jump in that river because they jumped in. That maybe the way to do it is to take a boat. You get into the river, but you're not drowning. You're paddling. So does anybody have any last words on this? Anything left
Thank
to say?
you.
Amen. Go ahead, DJ.
I was just going to bring up also another thing in terms of appreciating life is, you know, you bring this up quite often, Dhammarato, and it's very helpful, which is you don't appreciate breathing. stop for a little bit. I mean, that might be a good thing to tell someone just to shock them to wake up. Like, hey, just hold your breath for a while.
Yeah, if it's that bad, hold your breath until you feel better.
Yeah.
Because they can't hold it long. They're not trained.
Yeah. Really going to want to take that next one.
They really will want to take that next one. Just wait. Brett, you were about to say something.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody got any last things to say? Amen? You got something? Everything's all right. Okay. Well, I'm really glad to see you guys here today. This is actually kind of a new crowd. We've had an old crowd and nobody of them showed up, but all you guys who haven't been here for a while come on. So I'm really glad to see you. And I hope to see you again, Brett. Hope to see you again, Michael. It's been a while since you were on, Michael, but I'm glad to see you.
Well, she was born 4.5 months ago, so I've been a little busy. And my son Everett is 2.5, and school year started up again. I was on summer, and so just busy.
I'm really glad to see you.
Glad to see you too.
Glad to see you.
And Robert, go ahead, Michael.
I was just gonna say, I think holding Amelie is just making other thoughts come into my mind. But if you guys have ever seen the children's show Bluey, has anybody seen it? It's amazing. They actually have an episode where the story of the woman with the infant, I can't remember her name from the suttas right now, but they reenact that story in one of the episodes of Bluey, and they incorporate a lot of like Buddhism and mindfulness in it, because in Australia they're really heavily influenced by Ajahn Brahm's massive Sangha. And then there's another show on Apple TV, a children's show called Stillwater. Have you guys heard of that? It's about this Zen.
I know
panda.
about Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yeah, there's a panda. He's like a Zen master, and he mentors these 3 children, and it's a really great show. But today's conversation made me think of an episode I just watched where the kid didn't want to go out in the rain, and it's all about perspective. Basically, he teaches the kid about perspective, and this is all connected. My brain's synthesizing a bunch of stuff. But today we took our school. It was the last day of the semester before the winter break, and we went to old folks' homes, retirement homes, to sing carols, and there was like levels of severity to the different rooms. And one of the rooms we went, there was rooms where just people were old and they were there, and then there was like rooms where there was one room where like nobody in there could function. They couldn't even really open their eyes. They were all in lounge chair, like, not, what do you call them, lazy boy chairs, and I mean they could barely move their bodies or open their eyes. And here we are in these bodies that function, and we could talk and think about Buddhist concepts, and it goes. I think I heard you say recently also, Dhammarato, count your blessings. Just look at everything that's working: your toes, your legs, your arms, your eyes. Your mouth. Like, everything that's working in your body ain't gonna work forever. Eventually, it's gonna fall apart. And sometimes it's helpful just to remember that, because we're trying so hard to be happy, and we really shouldn't have to make any effort. It should just, kind of just be self-evident in a way, if you, change your perspective a little bit. That's what I learned from Stillwater, at least.
Good. So, Robert, are you still with us?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm glad to see you still. I hope that I see you again soon. Glad to see you popping into the Sangha groups from time to time.
Yes, I always enjoy our conversations, Dhammarato.
I know, I do too. I hope to see you again soon, Robert.
Cool. And see you soon.
So, thank you all. Thank everybody.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you,
I'm
Dhammarato.
really glad to see you guys.
Thank you, Dhammarato.
We'll let you go now.
Hey, have a good
I've got pity parties to deal with.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.